Hi, and welcome to another episode of Other Record Labels. This is Scott. Today we have a great episode with Forged Artifacts. These guys Matt's really involved online with social media and connecting with other labels and kind of fostering a bit of a community, and something that I noticed months ago and a lot in the past year, and immediately he was a label that I wanted to connect with. And he actually was somebody that I connected with right at the very beginning of starting this podcast. And he was game. And it just took us a bit of a while to get together. And we did, and it's a great conversation. I'm excited for you to hear it. Forged Artifacts have bands like Lawn, which is really big right now. Bill Waters was a great record from earlier this year, I think. And then Los Angeles Police Department, which a lot of you would know. They're an excellent band. I want you to check out their Bandcamp, and I'll give links at the end of the episode. I also want to say real quick about a shout out to Work Hard, Playlist Hard, who are helping out the podcast. Please check out their ebook, which kind of demystifies the streaming world and gives you a bit of information on how to get onto streaming platforms. Check it out at ebook.otherrecordlabels.com and use the coupon code OTHER. That's ebook.otherrecordlabels.com and use the coupon code OTHER. So you're on Central Time?
Yeah, I'm in South Minneapolis.
Oh, okay. I guess I don't really know anything about Minnesota. I don't know anything about Minnesota.
I don't know. Anyone that's not from Minnesota in the States probably thinks that we're a lot like Canada, so that's funny.
Well, yeah, that's true. Actually, I would think like you and like Wisconsin would be could be Canadian provinces.
Yeah, I mean we get a lot of that. I mean some of the accent kind of gets that way too, but not a lot of people here talk like they're from Fargo, like the movie. But right. I mean we get that sometimes. But yeah.
Well, so how close is Fargo to Minneapolis? Because Fargo's
actually in North Dakota.
North Dakota, right? Okay.
Yeah, so it's right over kind of the border, and it's like 4.5, 5 hours away, I think.
Okay,
it's pretty far. Yeah, it's not close to the city. So
I'm really disappointed that you don't have that Fargo accent.
Yeah, I mean some of it, some people do. I mean they get their O's, and we have the little things that kind of sound like that. Some more than others, but I don't know. I've been told I have more just like a Midwest, just kind of that nothing kind of accent.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Have you always been from Minnesota?
Yeah, I grew up just outside of Minneapolis, and then went to school in St. Paul, but been kind of living in the cities for about 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is that the Twin Cities? Is that what that's called?
Yep, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Oh,
so
St.
they're
Paul.
about,
okay.
I mean, they're just, the river separates them. And then like kind of downtown proper of each are probably 15 minutes away from each other when there's no traffic.
Oh, okay. Is that where the Prairie Home Companion is? Is that St. Paul?
Yeah, that's recorded at NPR. Yeah,
oh, okay.
In St. Paul, yep.
Oh, that's cool. Have you ever been?
No, I've never been to that program. They do other ones at the Fitz. I listen to NPR a lot, but I've never seen like a taping.
Oh, okay. I just thought that'd be kind of popular.
Yeah, the big office is down there, and that's like one of the like cool things in St. Paul is that NPR is there. But
what about
Minneapolis
Prince?
Is a little busier.
Is Prince from?
Yeah, so Prince is from here, and then he had properties down in Minneapolis too, and then his big studios in Chanhassen, which is outside. It's like southwest out of the city, probably like. I mean, from downtown Minneapolis, that's like 25 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like, it's weird. Like you're going down Highway 5 and it's pretty much like, you feel like you're almost going to be in like cornfields. And then all of a sudden there's like Prince's white mausoleum there. That's just like, it's crazy. I mean, it comes out of nowhere and it's just this crazy looking building. I mean, it's cool though. I mean, that's where you wanted to have it. So
yeah.
I don't know, maybe the property taxes were low or something.
Yeah. I mean, I think when he passed away, like the whole world was like, oh, I didn't realize he lived in Minnesota.
Yeah, definitely one of the claims to fame. The big claim to fame that actually like is down with being from Minneapolis because he grew up here, and like that's very much like he's about that. Whereas Bob Dylan is we try and claim him, and then he's like, oh no, I moved away from Hibbing when I was like 16, like, and went to Greenwich Village. Like, I prefer not to be from anywhere. Like, don't talk to me.
Oh, that's funny.
I mean, but we still love Bob. I mean,
sure.
He just got a really cool mural actually downtown last summer. I think it was last summer, the summer before. So we still love him, but Prince is kind of
I've noticed
guy, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I've noticed a lot of cities will just try to, like, if like somebody went to university in that town, then they'll try to claim that artist, or if their mom's from that town, they'll try to claim. It's like, so, you know what I mean? It's like there ends up being like,
oh yeah, it's
everyone has a claim to Dylan.
Guys, like, yeah, I know. There's times when like kind of our local media will try and like just like figure out any angle that they can, and it was like I saw one that was like Lana Del Rey's like brother like has a house here, or it's Bully is a big one, but I think she actually like went to high school in Minnesota before she moved, so she's like from one of the surrounding suburbs. But I mean, the big ones is just like you touched on, it's like Bob Dylan, Prince, and like the Replacements and Husker Du.
Right.
I mean, everybody always talks about the Replacements too.
I read
hopefully everybody knows that they're from here, but
yeah, I didn't know that. Well, what about probably your biggest claim to fame would be Semisonic.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, he's a huge songwriter now. I mean,
yeah, he actually is.
Now
he's amazing.
He writes songs for everybody. I was actually, funny enough, because I was talking to my brother about him. It's Dan Wilson.
Dan Wilson, yeah.
And so I was talking to my brother about him, and I was like, yeah, well, you wrote that big Adele song. He's like, oh, no, really? And then I went to his Wikipedia, and he's written songs for so many people. Like, you go out there, it's unbelievable songwriting credits. It's kind of funny. Like, I mean, that dude is just a hit maker.
And he's a great artist. Like, I mean, I knew Closing Time in high school, but I didn't really know, like, anything else. And
it's a solid album, because I'm like into that kind of indie stuff. Like, I love the Gin Blossoms and that kind of
like, I should check
music.
it out.
So I mean, Semisonic, that album with Closing Time is actually really good front to back.
And now he must live in LA, right?
I have no idea.
He's not in town.
He probably, I don't think he's like based here at this point. Maybe, I don't know. I know they play like, I think they played around Christmas. They're one of the bands that like Soul Asylum and, those types of bands will play like the Minneapolis hometown shows around Christmas.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah, he's a great writer. And actually that's where there's a really good music industry book that I don't know if ever got popular, but by the drummer of Semisonic. He wrote a book. I don't know if you've ever heard of this book. It came out like maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And it's it's about how absurd the music industry was in the 90s. And it's a hilarious book, and it's really insightful into...
Wow, I really want to read that.
Oh my gosh, man. Now, I read it, like I said, I read it about 10 or 15 years ago. I don't maybe my judgment was I was easier to please back then, but I remember loving it. And it talks a lot about Minnesota, actually, and the Twin Cities and where they started out and where Dan started out. But the book is great because it talks about the absurdity of like photo shoots and how much money was spent on the band.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. Like, the guy is really funny.
No, anyway. It's cool because that's why I love listening to those records too. Like, you listen to like Gin Blossoms and it sounds like an expensive record, and like they don't sound like that today. I mean, you listen to, like, a band would never get that kind of money.
Oh yeah.
Like, to record like an album, like there's very few that are like popular enough that are getting signed by a major and like getting that kind of money. So those that's why those records sound so good.
Yeah. And a lot of that stuff from the 90s has lasted and still sounds good. Like all the old
I think that's part of the reason, honestly. Like, they're not only great writers, but they got to, they had anything at their disposal. Good things can happen.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Well, you know what? Let's talk about your label, because that's the whole point. But I'm glad we talked about where you're from, because I mean, the last couple of labels I've talked to actually have been Portland and Seattle, but it's good to hear from a label that's like kind of off the beaten path of New York and and Portland, Chicago. But I was kind of curious about the music scene and in where you're from. And has Minneapolis been like supportive of your bands and like, you know, and what you do? Do you have a community there?
Yeah. I think I got asked this recently too, and it's hard to describe kind of the, I guess just the scene as a whole in Minneapolis. It's very diverse. There's all different kinds of genres of music that are going on and that are popular too. A lot of weird sounds too coming out of the city, which is awesome. I'm always looking for something that's, out of the norm. Most of the bands that I'm working with aren't like maybe the most popular that are being played on The Current, which is like a staple here in the cities. But they're playing more, the Sub Pops, those types of indie bands.
Right.
Where I'm working with more kind of the DIY scene, playing house shows and stuff like that. So people definitely kind of at the college radio level probably have, more in the know with the bands that I'm, working with and the shows that we're throwing than kind of the more popular mainstream, I guess, local crowd. But that's not to say, I mean, my bands have played, the First Ave main room and stuff like that. So, supportive enough, we get picked up by city pages and The Current will play songs on the radio and stuff like that. So, it's always, I've always wanted to have that local presence. And I've tried to release, 50-50, half the bands here and half not in Minneapolis, St.
That's
Paul.
Cool.
And I've pretty much kept that through the entire catalog. And I do think that's important. I like to have somewhat of a scene here and just support my community. So I've kept it that way.
That's great.
Both as kind of a mission just naturally too, because there's a lot of great bands here and there's great bands, starting all the time. So I'm happy to be able to work with them.
Is it easier to work with bands who are local just for the fact that you can sit and have a coffee and that kind of stuff? Like, do you find that, or does it not matter to you?
It does. It does, but it doesn't, because that I don't want to say it does completely to all the other bands that we've only talked on the phone. And some I get to see every once in a while, but it's always great to be able to say, hey, let's meet up here. And it's, usually at all of our favorite spots. So we just get to kind of hang out. We've maybe seen each other at shows. We all know mutual people because it's not a huge scene here. So we've heard of each other.
So the trust is like half built kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, they can ask their friends, and a lot of times they're saying, hey, can you hear my friend's band? Can you, come to this show and see this new band that just started? They have no music out, but I've seen them play twice. Come and see them.
Cool.
So it's that kind of cool thing where it's a little bit from the ground up and it's personal. I like that too. And obviously, going getting a beer and a coffee, you kind of can establish that relationship a little bit, solidify it a little faster, and in a different way than it is over email or phone. Yeah,
that's true. So when did you start the label? Like, how did this all begin?
I started, the first release was June 2012. And that was with a local band. Before that, I majored in print journalism, and then after school, I got an internship at the AV club with the Onion here in town.
Oh, nice.
And that was just like for a few months. And, beyond that, then it was like unpaid. And then I was, just out of school, and I felt like I had to get a real job now. So I had to make money.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go into journalism because I didn't want to move out of the cities. And, a lot of times you have to kind of move out of market when you're first starting out.
Yeah, right.
It's not something that I want to do, because I was in kind of traditional, when I came up through school, it was okay, you're working in a newsroom, you have editors, that sort of thing, that sort of trajectory. So I didn't want to do that. And I ended up just getting kind of a normal, entry level job. And once I had enough money, I was still kind of writing about music on a few blogs. And I was like, okay, I want to do something more. I want to do something involved with music, and I want to do something more substantial than just writing about music and, and grind it out that way. I just feel like I wasn't, I could get a few hits on a blog and some people might read my writing, but I want to be, more hands-on with it. So I saw at that time, that was, 2012, maybe '08, '09 is when like a lot of like tape blogs were out there, and that was kind of like the whole blogosphere, like all those awesome, music MP3 blogs that I followed were kind of coming up then.
Okay.
And so I looked around and I said, all right, maybe I can do this. And I reached out to some people in town that were, doing labels, and just kind of asked what they were doing and researched myself, and then kind of stumbled into it. Really approached the first band with just an idea, didn't even have the logo finalized, had like a name, and they kind of just took a chance on me, and I took a chance on them too, because I had nothing to show for it, and that was how it kind of started.
Interesting. That's interesting. You came from it, from the angle of being a writer. How is that? I mean, that's pretty unique. I haven't really heard of that. A lot of people, it's musicians or it's recording engineers or producers or band managers, or most people, they're just in a band and they want to self-release. How is that? Like, that must be really nice to have that skill of a writer and running a label and having the insight into music journalism.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. I guess I never really saw it that way. I guess more with what side me there is kind of what I was explaining. Like, I just wanted to do something more, and I just like grew up loving all like physical, music. Like, I was obsessive with my CDs. Like, everything had to be all perfect, and I like just loved everything about them. And I just felt like, so when I was writing about music, I mean, it's great. You're getting sent, advances and stuff like that, and it's fun, and you get to know some musicians on a somewhat personal level, maybe if you do an interview or something. But I just felt like I wasn't like writing on huge publications. Like, I was just kind of throwing my thoughts into the ether, and I was like, okay, well, what can I do that's more, that I'd be able to like have that connection and put out sweet stuff. I mean, I didn't really have an idea of what I was doing even to start out. I didn't know what it would become, or if it would even be cool, or I mean, I didn't know. Like, I just wanted to have that further connection with music, and I thought that this was the best route to do it.
That's really cool. So what was so what was the first band, and what was your like vision for distribution? Were you going to be digital only, or were you cassettes like right out of the gate?
No, so that's what's funny. So the first band was Nice Purse.
Okay.
They've gone on to do other projects. Like, everybody in their band has done other bands. I've worked with some of their other bands. France Camp, Jay was in Nice Purse. And so I reached out to them because they were just awesome. They had been playing shows. They were known in the community. I thought I was kind of going out on a limb, being like, there's no chance. And then they wanted to, which was sweet.
Were you friends with them?
No.
Wow.
I actually didn't know them. I had seen them live, and I didn't know them. I just kind of cold emailed them, and then we met up with Jeff, and I met up in Minneapolis. I remember the coffee shop that we met up at, and that was kind of it. And he had been through the industry a little bit more on the kind of recording and producing side. He had seen some bigger contracts. He kind of knew the ins and outs of that whole thing. Like, he was schooling me because I didn't know. I was like, yeah, do we like sign a contract? I don't know.
Did you do a contract?
I think we did. I think it was more drafted up by like him, honestly.
Okay.
He was like, because he was coming to me, he's like, who the hell is this guy? So I better get something down on paper with this dude that like I don't even know.
That's so funny.
Which is like 100% fair. Like, at that point, I didn't have any idea. So that's how that went. And when I started, I wanted to do vinyl only. Like, that was my whole thing. So like our first 6 releases were all vinyl, and I was like, yes, I'm gonna do this. I only want to do records right out the gate. And I saved up my money to be able to do that, to be like, okay, well, how much am I going to need from my job, to be able to start this thing that I want to do? Because I wasn't going to ask people for money. I didn't, I don't even think GoFundMe or like stuff like that was even a thing.
That's right.
And, so I was just like, all right, well, if I want to start a business, I have to save up and do it. So that's what I did.
Good for you.
Which maybe the smartest or dumbest thing ever. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe like no one does that. I don't know. So I wait until I scrap together the money for the first vinyl pressing. And
How many pieces?
250.
Oh,
so when
wow.
those showed up, that was like the coolest day. I mean, those came
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, here's a record that I made. I don't know.
Did you have a logo by then?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. No, there was the logo was on there, and it kind of morphed. I think I had like the URL on there too, and I ended up changing that. But like, yeah, so that was the first thing out the gate. And then my distribution was just really like I gave them records to sell at shows, and then just try to get word of mouth. Reached out to local publications and was like, hey, do you want to cover this? And I think City Pages picked it up, and they were pushing on social media, and I did for what I had at the time, and that was pretty much it.
And I mean, okay, so did you pay for that all by yourself?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty steep investment. The band must have been so stoked.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm sure they loved it. I mean, it's like, it's like, who's this dude? As long as Jeff kind of had some particulars down on paper, I think he was happy, because it's like, holy shit, this guy's gonna put our record,
pay for our vinyl.
Oh, he's gonna get us on wax, which we never. That wasn't even an intention or even a thought.
I mean, it's still today in 2018, it's still a huge deal for a band to be able to do vinyl. It's still like very expensive and very arduous and very time consuming. But in 2012, I mean, it was really only the majors and the elite. I mean, it was still a really tough thing to do.
Oh yeah. I mean, in my eye, they deserved it, and that was enough for me, and they wanted to go along with it. I said, all right, let's do it.
So did they have a record already recorded, or were you involved in that process?
Yeah, it was out. They had a local release show for it at that time, and then we did it, and then it came out, and they had another one for it, like the vinyl release, and then
that's cool. So I mean,
like for that, yeah,
you kind of had to do vinyl, like to sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? To justify a second release, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was like, looking back on it now, like I'm kind of amazed that I did that. And then the fact that I did 6 of them before I was like, okay, maybe not every release, or I need to think about this more, because it's a lot of money to like put down, especially as just one person. And you're not talking about a band that has like, national radio play or anything like that, or that they're touring extensively. I mean, that was even a worse horror story that we don't have to get into, but I mean, they broke up soon after we put it out.
Oh, no.
I mean, that could have been the end of it. That could have just been like, okay, well, that was a fun little experiment.
Yeah.
The label is done.
Yeah.
Here's the rest of your records. I don't want them in my house.
Yeah.
Sitting with this memory, and there you go. So I mean, that's what happened, and it was a lot. I mean, and I only worked with local bands the first 4 releases were all local too. So at that point, that's how I thought in my mind that I had to organically grow, was, get a presence in the city, see if I can build up that way before I even try and stretch myself outward.
Right.
So that's kind of the approach.
So why did you do it again? Why did you do a second vinyl release?
I think just the music the bands that I worked with then were enough for me to justify that I wanted to keep doing it, and at least take a few more chances to see if it could turn into something. And the first couple didn't do bad enough where it was like 100% devastating to the business as a whole. So I could keep going.
Right. Oh, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm just checking my make sure everything's working here. Okay, so what about like things moved into? I think that's great, by the way. I mean, like I'm kind of like dumbfounded by this, because going back, I kind of got started around the same time as you, and like I have never made that kind of you're like kind of putting me to shame here. I've never put that much faith in a record.
Well, that was like no shame. That was no clout. That was no anything. That was like, I threw it all out there.
Yeah, but
it was kind of dumb. It wasn't even like making mistakes per se. It was just like not knowing. It was just kind of like blind ignorance at the whole thing. Just like, let's go. Let's see what happens.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's like I've talked about this with a lot of people now, and it's like running a label is about being in love with an artist or being in love with a record, especially a record. And I've done this once before where a record had already released and I wanted to re-release it because it was my favorite record of the year. And there's so many records, and if it made sense financially, there's so many records where I would press a vinyl even if I knew that I was going to lose a bit of money or break even, just because like I wanted to have that record in my collection. Like you probably wanted to have that nice Purse record in your collection.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that definitely that's been a driver on a few things that we've done. And it's cool, and that's what you really want at the end of the day. I mean, you're your own personal curator, as well as from the outside, that's what you're doing essentially as a label. You're curating. You feel like you're making something whole from all these sporadic parts, what the internet is.
Yeah.
But you're also doing that. It's very personal, for sure. Everything that you're putting out and doing, the entire operation really is personal until you're a label of a size that isn't that. I mean, there's a lot of labels are just doing it for pure love. I mean, I'm doing it to break even. Yeah. Everything that I make back, I put back in. So as long as I can put out more cool music that I like, that's a win.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you shift to cassettes? Because it feels like that's like more the focus now. Am I right?
Yeah, I think it was. Let me see. It was the 8th release.
Okay.
The 8th was the first tape, which is a band I mentioned. That was Jay. He was in he was in Nice Purse, and then his band France Camp we put out on tape, and I've also done a record now with France Camp too.
Okay.
And before, when I started, actually one of the first people that I met with was Steve, who runs Moonglyph. He's now in the Bay Area.
Okay.
I met with him and just kind of like, as like kind of a mentor, just like, hey, I really admire your label. Do you want to get coffee? And you can just kind of show me the ropes.
Yeah, that's cool.
I just have questions. I don't even know where to start, kind of thing. And he's like, he always said he was really into cassettes, and I've always been. And then he's like, oh, well, you should just start there. And for some reason, back then I was all gung ho, like I need to do records. Like I want to do vinyl right away. And that's probably one thing that I wish I would have just started on tapes and then worked my way up rather than doing the inverse. But yeah, it was just a natural progression to tape. Was more just kind of the creative freedom and just kind of versatility that they have as far as who I can work with and at the pace that I can put stuff out. Just because, vinyl costs a ton. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that sinks a lot of your resources when you're a small label, and you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket, and the time too. I mean, you're talking 4 to 6 months production time, when it's good. And then you have all that lead up time, yada, yada. But I mean, with tapes, you can say, okay, I want to work with, somebody that doesn't play any shows. They never play out live. And that's okay. We can do 100 tapes and I can treat it just like a vinyl release. We're still going to go after the same press and everything else, but we can get that produced for, 1/10 the cost.
Really?
And in, I can get tapes done in 3 weeks. So
right.
That's just something where I can work with more bands, take more chances, work with bands that wouldn't make sense like on paper because you have to think about it dollars and cents at a certain point. It's all about the music and the love for it. But if you're a business and you want to keep releasing, you have to be somewhat smart. But with tapes, you can be kind of dumb. Let's be honest. I mean, you can be like, all right, you know what? This one's going to do really well. It's going to sell out in a week. But this other one I might sit with for a year, but that's okay. Financially speaking. And just because I love it, I can just turn around and say, that's okay. I can justify anything I put out in that sense. And I just love tapes. So, I mean, I don't want to, I mean, I didn't start with them, but I've always loved them. And it's a fun thing to do. So
Well, I've heard a lot. I want to camp out on this subject for a bit because I love it too, but I'm very curious, and I've been just kind of keeping my eye on what's going on with tapes. I mean, I grew up with them when I was a little kid, and I've been getting back into them in the last maybe 4 or 5 years. I've heard a lot of different opinions about the defense for cassettes. Like some people say it's like we were talking about like the affordable alternative to vinyl. For some people it's nostalgia. For some people it can't be nostalgia. Like they're just too young. I know that the canvas size for artwork is kind of cool. Like, what do you love about it? Like, why do you think your fans love cassettes?
That's a good question. And like when you're someone that deals with them all the time, you to the greater world outside of DIY and just kind of if you're listening to indie music and you're a Bandcamp person and kind of the scene and where the industry is right now, cassettes don't like give you this like jarring reaction. You're just like, okay, yeah, they released it on cassette.
Yeah.
To everybody else in the greater world, it's what the hell are you doing? Like I don't understand, and they think it's stupid. They think it sounds horrible. But let me put it this way: no one, and along with that, the greater world outside of labels and artists directly don't know what goes into making a record.
Good point.
Whether
man.
that's on any medium, they don't understand what goes into it. And you see popular music if you go to our local store, Electric Fetus. I mean, if you walk in there, you think, oh, I'm in a big I'm in the indie like record store, like, yeah. And you're looking on the shelf and you see, oh, there's Kurt Vile and these big bands that I'm hearing on the radio, LCD Sound System. Like, yeah. Do you realize how much money is behind them to get them in the store that you get to walk up and buy them?
Yeah. Oh man. Good
I think
point.
just like a lot of that they just don't understand. So I'm going off on a tangent. That's away from kind of tapes, but it gets to the point that, that there's a lot of work, money, and time that goes into releasing stuff. And I think that's goes into why I shifted. And I think that's why listeners are more open to that. The same reason why I get to work with the bands that I do, taking a chance on them and having no presence at all is the same reason why listeners can go on Bandcamp and find obscure artists but still have something to buy. If it wasn't for labels like mine, you would just get a download. So I mean, expanding upon that, if you want zero physical media, which I think is just completely unacceptable, it's all or nothing, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's good to be able to offer something than nothing at all.
Well, I mean, there's so many great points in there, and I mean, this is so funny because I have this question written down. I wanted to talk to you about that. It's just so absurd. I mean, like cassettes are fun, and I'm so surprised when people criticize them. But it's like every time. You're right. Every time like someone hears for the first time that cassettes are coming back, it's always like followed by some sort of negative, snarky comment. Like, and I wanted to ask you why you think that is, but I mean, that's a really great point to think that I've had so many people say, hey, like, are you going to do this on vinyl? And I'm like, no, like I don't have $2,000 just so you can have a vinyl. For $15. Exactly. And like, I would love to, but it's like, yeah, that's a really good point.
I think there's a level of, classism and elitism too, that goes into those negative comments, which is probably, that's a completely other conversation. But I mean, those people, I think so some of those complaints, I hear them, I get it. I mean, I want certain records on vinyl too. I collect records.
Yeah.
It's 2018. I listen to music any way I can. I listen to tapes. I listen to records. I have a Spotify account. I have, when I listen to my car, I'm not bringing around a turntable.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? I mean, I have a car that's 2011. I mean, I have a plug-in. I have an aux cord.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to any way I can, but I think just negative comments are just, it's just blind ignorance, and
Well,
they don't know, and whether it's malicious or not, they don't understand. I think those people, what goes into making any physical media, whether it be tapes or vinyl.
yeah, no, that's a really good point. I honestly had never thought about that before, but I think you're spot on with that. And the other thing too is I've said in defense is like, if somebody wants to support music, if they want to buy music in whatever format they feel like why are we criticizing that? You know what I mean? Like if somebody wants to buy a record on a pancake, like I'm not going to say anything. Like that's thank you for supporting us. Thank you for supporting the artists. And I'm like, I can't believe it when somebody in the industry like criticizes people who buy tapes. So it's like they're buying records, and that's great.
Exactly. Yeah. Would you rather have them just going on YouTube and listening to it? I mean, give me a break. I mean,
know.
They're supporting someone, and when it comes down to it, they don't cost that much, and you're like, wow, this is really cheap. But to someone like me, every dollar counts. Every dollar is going to go to another release. That's just going to further, more artists and more art to be out there. And I'm trying to push more music and have more people hear it. So every dollar matters.
Well, and speaking of every dollar, I mean, it's a huge impact on shipping as well versus vinyl.
Oh, absolutely.
Massive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, luckily in the States, if we're shipping domestically, it's media mail. So that if you ship through USPS, it's actually really affordable for each.
Wow.
But it gets there. It's like, they have like a different delivery window for that. It's like 4 to 7 business days, but it usually keeps it under like $3.50 for one.
That's awesome.
One tape or one vinyl. So that's nice. But you're talking, if I'm shipping to you or if I'm shipping to anyone overseas, then it gets absurd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but even vinyl is way worse. Like most of the times when I'm on Bandcamp or even worse on an artist website, and I add a vinyl to my cart, and then shipping to Canada is usually more than the vinyl.
Yeah, I see that too. And luckily there's rare cases where I have to get stuff overseas, but I'll splurge if I have to. But hopefully I'm going through like Juno or something where I can get a good overseas rate. But yeah, it's a killer. Well, I mean, but sometimes you have to have the music for sure. So,
and I think there needs to be a bit more, going back to your epiphany about, some of these fans and just not having any understanding about how physical media works, and they don't need to. Like, it's not like they're ignorant. It's like it's not their job to know.
Anyone for that. No, but, and I wouldn't know either if I wasn't involved.
Totally. But I think it would be good to kind of casually educate them a little bit, because I feel bad when I post a vinyl online on Bandcamp and I put for Europe, it's got to like. If I put $20 to ship to Europe, I'm still eating shipping costs. Like, it's still going to cost me $26 or $28. And I still eat like $8 of that. So anytime I ship a vinyl overseas, I'm either losing money or we've completely broken even. And so
I'm usually I'm honestly pricing stuff. So I just I'm making cost on the physical item.
Right.
I'm just making the money back.
Exactly. And I hope that music fans, and there's a lot of music fans out there who will tip you on Bandcamp, but they don't care what they pay for shipping, and they want you to take all the time in the world. They're really great. I just really do want fans to know that, these exorbitant shipping costs it has to do with the media, the size of the media and the way that, United States Postal Service or Canada Post works.
Yeah, I see those comments a lot. You'll see on Twitter too, especially labels of my size. Will if someone's complaining, then we can just reach out, because it's not like we're just
right.
Hi, it's one person. So right here, you're talking directly to us. So we're gonna see what you say.
Yeah. The execs at Forged Artifacts.
Yeah, I mean that's me. It's not a company. It's just Matt. So it's me. Here I am, and I will answer your question. I am the shipping guy too.
I'm the shipping guy.
But I mean that's fine. I mean, people will reach out and just say, "Hey, man, I wish that I could charge you less, but this is just the bottom line." I try and work around that too. I've worked with a few people Philippe, who runs United Cassettes, he's
Right.
trying to put together like a good, community-based thing where I'm shipping, bulk orders of tapes to him, and even if it's only 5-6 copies of each, if I'm sending those, one-time box for $50, but I'm sending him 50-60 tapes, that's really helpful. And then I
Yes,
can
for
direct
sure.
people there and say, hey, if you're in Europe, you can get it from him at the same cost that you would getting it from me if I was sending it to Wisconsin. I mean,
Amazing.
and so that's what I like a lot. And we have a good relationship there. I've gone to them to Japan with the same purpose and things like that. And I wish I had more places to send, but it's a good start. And I
Yeah.
think United Cassettes could turn into something really cool. I mean, Philippe and I have been talking, and he's an idea guy. I mean, he just wants to try new things, and he thinks that there's something worthwhile if we all band together. And I completely agree. And I think that's one small step of bringing that community together, because we're all online. It's all global. So we have to find a way to bring the physical global too on a reasonable scale.
Great
Because
point.
really between here and, Slovakia, the people listening are probably, much in the same boat. They're looking for tapes because that's what's affordable to them. So I want to make that the same and not just penalize them like, oh, well, I can send you this tape, but it's going to be $19 to ship it or something like that. Something ridiculous. So,
that is a really cool
just
thing.
one cool way to bring everybody together.
And it's great too, because I love to kind of hear about what's happening with that, because we have essentially, all of the independent label people that I've talked to are, obviously so supportive of each other. There's like zero competition amongst the indie labels, like the average size indie labels. And it's like we're all ambassadors of this, physical art. And it's like I would gladly have 100 tapes, sitting in my closet, and anybody from Ontario who wanted one, I would ship them one, gladly, just because of that whole thing. Because if somebody was doing the same with my product in Italy, or or in Norway, I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I think that, like, some labels have, and some will even today, like they'll have a distro section that they're just like stocking their friends or just like close label friends in that way.
That's so cool.
I like to make it more advantageous where it's like different, regions, where it's like I would love to have someone in Canada that can do that, because it makes no sense, especially because we're in Minnesota. It's like, okay, I can hit you with a rock, not literally, but give me a break. And it's like across the border, and it's like 3 times as much to ship to you. That's ridiculous.
It's brutal. I know.
So it's like,
brutal.
I just want to find creative ways to do that. And I think it's cool that, certain labels do it, but my grand ideas and what I've discussed with a few is just to make it more like Philippe has the right idea of doing the United Cassettes, where it's a bunch of labels under an umbrella, like kind of make it its own entity and also its own kind of one-stop shop and destination.
Yeah.
Where, if you have just random labels distroing, you're not really going to figure that out unless you're kind of in the know and you're digging.
That's true.
But if you had a place to go where it was more like a marketplace for that purpose, and that it could be curated too. I mean, it might not be a free for all for everybody's label, but we do a curation as labels. It might be curated on that level too, where it's X amount of labels, and then you're always seeing their releases, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's just something that like goes through my head. Like that could be a really cool thing. It's kind of like how I, saw blogs, band together before they were utterly destroyed. Altered Zones was so cool. Like, I think that was in like 2010 or 11 that got destroyed, but it was basically all the coolest blogs that I read all came together.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
Like sweet, like entity. But yeah, it's kind of the same idea. I've seen different distros. I think Captured Tracks does one where they're kind of under like a label group, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, we had something here in Canada, Weird Distro. I think they're closing down now, and I think that their initial vision was, I didn't follow it too closely, but I believe that they wanted to have like touring bands help move product across the country. Like,
Okay.
so kind of
That's kind
like,
of interesting.
yeah, it was kind of cool. I don't know if that ever worked out. I think they were doing mostly tapes. They did some
Was it like a
vinyl.
traveling like pop-up shop basically?
You know what? I'm not really sure. No, I think it was supposed to be like bands would deliver product to the record
Oh, really?
stores, like independent record stores,
Oh, okay.
while they were on
Okay, that makes
tour.
sense.
You know, I
Sweet.
mean, if it's everything is domestic, it's not like an issue. And if it's
Yeah.
tapes, then I don't know. I can't remember what happened. They ended up having to shut down this year, but yeah, I mean, I think that whole thing is really cool. And your fans, like the people who follow Forged Artifacts, they trust you and your tastes, and we talked about that at the beginning. And so they would totally trust that, you know, you're choosing these bands, but if you're also choosing labels that you support and the artists on those other labels, then the fans would be welcoming to that as well.
Yeah,
No
I
doubt.
think I definitely I shout out labels all the time, and I like to share their music. Like when they have big posts about records that I really like, you know, I'm not afraid to, you know, share that. I think like once you get to a certain level, I think they try and be like so branded and just like, okay, this is the label. We're only going to share like these updates. It's on like an algorithm basically.
Right.
But I want to make it seem like, you know, an actual person behind it. And I think that's a lot of the labels on the level that I'm at kind of make that, where it's like, you know, it's a person behind that. It's kind of their identity. It's an extension of their identity is the label.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's not like a full team per se. It's really just like a vision and someone you can actually talk to.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, I've noticed that with you on Twitter and a couple other labels too. And I think that has the best success for sure. That's just kind of the trend today.
It's what I've seen and what I really clung on to.
Yeah.
It probably happened less like early on or like a few years ago.
Oh man.
But when it did, I was like, oh man, that's really cool. And like, why not? I mean, why can't you? I mean, everybody's writing the rules. No one knows what they're doing. Let's just put that out there.
Yeah.
No one in the music industry knows what they're doing. No one at any level.
I believe
we're all winging it.
I believe that nobody in any profession, in any industry knows what they're doing.
No one knows. I mean, if someone in the industry says, "Hey, come along with me. I have all the answers," you better
Leave.
run. You better just like run, like sprint, like run away.
It's true. Listen, some of the coolest conversations I've had with labels who are way bigger than me and have achieved, you know, the type of thing I would dream of. Through this podcast, I'm asking them like, what's the secret? Like, how do you get this contact? How do you get that? And they just say like, I have no idea. Like at a level that's greater than mine, they still don't know. It's still
that's humbling too.
Oh, it feels it's so great. You're like, it's so great to hear.
So I'm not. So it's okay that I have no idea. I don't have to have those worries.
Yeah,
literally no one knows. So that's good.
Yeah, because it totally feels like some days I feel like. Does the press like specifically ignore my emails? Like, do they see Scott's name and other songs and go like, "Oh, fuck that guy"? Like, you know what I mean? That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I can feel like a conspiracy. Like it's like you're like they're all out to get me. Like they're all CCing each other and like forwarding my email. And,
don't respond to his
sending
email.
Like funny gifs and like attaching them and like ridiculing me. Like everybody's gonna have those negative thoughts for sure.
Well, somebody said, I can't remember who I was talking to. It might have been James from Fox Food, but somebody was saying how they were talking to a blog, like a mid-sized blog, and they were saying that they get like over 100 emails a day, like press releases, and it was like a mid-size, like not even like a bigger blog or a bigger website, and it's like it made me realize that like when I send these my emails out to the press contacts, it's just pure luck if they see my email, let alone respond to it.
Yeah,
just pure luck.
Absolutely.
I just happen to be in their line of eyeball in the list.
I'm convinced like some people I'll reach out to and I have a relationship where they get back to me even if they like it or not. And it's like even in that case, it's like you must like have me in. They have to have filters.
Yeah.
Like,
For sure.
They probably add like favorite context, so they see stuff and it goes to the top. Like you see those ones where like a writer will like take a screenshot of their inbox and then tweet it out, and it gives me like hardcore anxiety. And I'm just like, oh my god, like I could not. I would go mental. Like if my inbox said over 100, that means I would have been dead for like a year.
Is the peeps who get like 100 emails, like there's some great records in there, like from good labels like yourself and from other labels and big labels. Like it must stress them out that there could be possibly missing some of that stuff, because there's a lot of crap, I'm sure. But
yeah, there's a lot in common with, I think, label runners in general, and then writers.
Yeah, like, that's true. They're getting some of the same emails.
I mean, it's an equally thankless job in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that like I'm not looking for thanks. Like if my bands hear this, like you guys don't have to like text me and ask me if I'm okay. But I mean, you sometimes you don't get that, that kind of response. And I know it's the same for a writer. They work very hard to do what they're doing, often at no cost to them. I mean,
for sure.
It's just themselves, their pure passion and talent and their time.
Oh, for sure.
So that's what they're putting in, and I think that's amazing. And we wouldn't be nearly, reaching as many people as we are today if it wasn't for the writers and the blogs that have backed me up, from day one. A couple of examples: the Gray Estates, Gold Flake Paint. If I didn't and I came up at the same time that they were just starting it, and then we didn't have a lot of followers, they didn't have a lot of followers, but you know what, we had each other, and we fostered that relationship, and now look where we all are now. It's really cool to see that kind of come up, and that support, and that's how it all starts. And then you have a community that's all getting bigger, and that's really cool to see.
And those are some great examples. I love those blogs, and it's also a really good lesson for people who are starting a label now and who are trying to build their roster and build their brand. And there's a lot of blogs out there who have like, you might go to their Facebook page or their Twitter, and they have like 20 likes or 30 followers. And you think like, and they wrote about one of your releases, and your gut reaction is to be like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. It's just some college kid with a blog. But, there's a chance that blog, first of all, they took the time to do it, so don't be an asshole, but there's a chance that they're going to stick around next semester, and then the next year, and then that following is going to grow. And that's a good lesson.
Yeah. I mean, it works both ways. You should never think that you're better or bigger than anyone.
Totally.
Really. I mean, just be honest with your expectations. Just think about, put yourself in their shoes when you're starting out. When I was starting out and I was nothing, and the drummer of that band knew better than me to get us down on paper. Like I didn't even know. Like there's lessons to be learned, from the beginning of anything, really. Whether that's going to be a career in writing or you're starting out a label, it can work both ways. That writer, the next semester could end up at Pitchfork and still wants to cover your releases.
I know.
You might put out the next record that's by someone that's headlining Coachella, and guess what? That writer has full access to you because they took a chance on you. So it can work that same way. And it's not, I mean, there's a lot of negativity that people will talk about in the music industry, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of just people that are passionate about what they're doing. They're not doing it for money or popularity. They're just doing it because they love music and they want to be involved in some way. And it's good to always think about that.
Yeah.
There are the bad ones, but there's bad ones everywhere. So
that's a good point.
Don't sweat bad experiences.
Hey, let's go back to tapes for a sec. So here's what I want to ask you. So your tapes are printed and duplicated professionally. Has it always been that way, or did you do any like DIY print at home?
No, just because when I was starting, I didn't have a clue.
Okay.
So just by necessity and like a timeline, I was like, okay, I need to get these out who have people worked with, and then I got linked up with National Audio Company, and I haven't looked back, and they're amazing, and I only do stuff through them.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think the DIY model, and I've done it twice now, it's good because you can print on demand. So you can basically just have blanks lying around, and then if you get an order, you print on demand. But like, economically, it's not really any cheaper. Like because you have to go and buy 20 tapes. You have to have them shipped to you. You have to buy some cases. Like printing 50 tapes from, we have a place here in Canada, but it's not that expensive.
Yeah, and most of the bands, I mean, there are those few exceptions that I kind of mentioned that I'm working with someone that doesn't play shows, but most of them do and are going on small tours or at least playing locally quite a bit. So I'm taking half those and giving them directly to the band. So
awesome.
There's only there's X number that are actually going to be online for sale. And now between, that band's local fan base and then the outside, wherever, getting off of whatever press we get, that's usually enough to get my quantities down low enough where it's not taking up a ton of space and it just makes sense economically. And I kind of like that insurance of doing it pro dubbed. You're not getting all warpy and kind of having your fun with different speeds or anything.
Oh my gosh, it's true.
Just letting them just kind of do their magic, and they've been amazing. It's like my account rep, I just email a person, and it's great. I don't know. I love working with them.
They're a cool place, and there's definitely DIY is fun and it's cool. It has its place, but it's really rewarding to have a pad stamped cassette and properly folded J card,
Yeah. No, I did do one. The one CDR I did was early on.
Okay.
And I actually got a stamp and then cardboard.
Yeah, I've done that too.
And did the whole the sticker front and then did the stamp back and everything.
Yeah.
And that was fun for one time.
Yeah, exactly.
that was good. And then but I've had inserts where France Camp is an example that James in that band, he screen printed 50 posters for the first 50 records. And so there's been stuff like that, or Polaroids and stuff like that we do cool. Extra, but nothing I have not in the tape or vinyl, no.
Last year I saw a big end cap display of tapes when I was down in the States in Buffalo. This big end cap of tapes and Walkmans at Urban Outfitters. Do you want to see tapes become more mainstream?
Why not? I mean, yeah.
Do you want to see tapes grow similar to what vinyl is today?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you can get all jaded or whatever, but let's be honest. I mean, this wasn't ours. I mean, tapes have been here, vinyl have been here. I mean, if you're getting weird about that,
that's
just give me a break.
That's true.
As a vinyl collector, do I have those kind of snotty, snarky remarks? Sure, but that could be saved for another conversation. But I'll throw one out. I mean, do we need Red Hot Chili Peppers a triple LP being re-released on Record Store Day for $65? I don't know. Are some things getting out of control? Yes. But I mean, that gets kind of stressful. Record Store Day, when you're in vinyl production, that can just harm. I think that ended up harming a lot of labels of my size and drove them toward. I think that's one of the biggest drivers for us towards tape, and I think that's the same thing for a lot of labels.
Does that affect
our size?
Does Cassette Store Day affect you? Was that the summer or the fall?
It's in the fall. Yeah, because
and does that affect
RSD,
production?
That's in April, and I think that's no.
Okay.
That doesn't. And so it's not to that point yet. And then now people are they'll have the comments about Cassette Store Day and say, oh well, blah blah, that's stupid. Are we really going to do this? Do we need to be picking back off of Record Store Day or whatever? But I mean, we have an awesome record store in town, Dead Media, ran by some of my buddies, and they sell probably more tapes than they do vinyl, and they were like the
No
only
way.
spot in town to do tapes. And so they throw a cassette store day party. I've gone and DJ'd a couple times, and it's always just like it's always just a fun time to go out there and like we grill out, and that's it's a cool shop, and it kind of like fosters that tape community here, which is really cool to see. So
I know some labels.
Brick and mortars are clinging on to it. I don't care if it gets popular. I mean, that's fine.
I would love like some distributors to start shipping them. Like I would like personally as a music fan, as a music buyer, when I go to the record store, I mean, here in Canada, I've talked about this before, but here in Canada, the prices of vinyl is quite high due to like import fees and stuff, because most of them are pressed in America. And so most records that I'm going to buy are like probably the lowest price would be like $26.99 or $29.99.
Oh my god!
And then like any like double vinyl would be into the 30s for sure.
Oh my god, that's so expensive.
It's tough. But I still, I'll still buy quite a lot of records. But because of that, I would love to go, and I still love going to a record store, but I would love to go in a record store and flip through tapes, even if that meant that, imports were $12.99 or whatever, $14.99. It's just an easier pill to swallow, and it's still really rewarding to take home like a brand new tape of a band I'm excited about.
Yeah, I mean I see that more here. I mean, Dead Media is kind of like our diamond in the rough. I mean, they were doing it since the beginning. Like they always had tapes, and they were before kind of this so-called boom that we're seeing in tapes and kind of a more consumer acceptance, I guess, of tapes. And it's kind of coming around and being like a cool, popular thing. But they're, some of the bigger places in town, some of them won't flat out. They're just like, no, I mean, I'm not going to pick up tapes from you, like go away.
Yeah.
But then even like Electric Fetus, they have a tape section, which is cool because they're probably the most heavily trafficked. They're probably the outside record store that people know that aren't from Minneapolis is the Electric Fetus.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's cool to see that they've adopted that, or at least allow floor space for it.
Yeah, that is great.
But yeah, I mean, there's a few exceptions, but it's kind of like the smaller ones, but they're going to stock, and they sell a lot of tapes. That's the thing. I mean, Dead Media sells a lot of tapes. They sell a lot of bars.
I've noticed that.
Which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I've noticed that for some record store managers, like indie record store managers, some of them are kind of the camp that we talked about at the beginning of this chat about, where they don't understand cassettes. They don't really understand, why wouldn't you just do vinyl, or why wouldn't you just do CD? But I am seeing that turn a little bit, and allowing floor space and shelf space.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can free up some room and take down some of those Steve Miller and Frampton Comes Alive and make some room for some tapes.
Empty out the box set, the CD box set section.
They don't need that dusty dollar bin. I mean, just throw it out, man. You don't need that.
The DVD section can go. That's
the Blu-ray. DVDs. I mean, you can just give them all to me. I'll just swap. I'll bring in some tapes. You just throw some DVDs in my trunk.
Do you guys do digital of your records? Like, I know you do Bandcamp. Do you do streaming or anything?
So, yeah, I had, so kind of back to that label group kind of thing. I did when I think that was like 2013 or so, 14 maybe. French Kiss label group started to come up, and they had some labels on there that I looked up to. And then I got in with them for my digital distro through the Orchard. So that gets all the releases on Spotify and iTunes and all that. So
cool.
I do digital distro, and that's kind of, some bands, like if they want to just do their own, that's fine. Others, just convenience, I have it, so I do that for them. So yeah, I do digital. Is
it successful for you? Like, or is it just like an extra thing to have for fans?
I think it depends. It depends. There's been big ones that have gotten like good streaming traction, but I mean, good streaming traction, relatively speaking, is a few $100s. So it's not like breaking the bank probably on a per band basis, except for maybe a couple outliers.
Right.
So to all the rest, that doesn't seem like a lot, but when it's all of them and then me, like probably like the little bit that I'm able to put back in the label is helpful,
Yeah.
but it's not breaking the bank for anyone.
I love it when tape labels like yourself all like offer. I mean, that's where I kind of got into the Bill Waters record, was on Apple Music, just because I didn't buy the tape at the time, and I really wanted to hear the record, and I wanted to have it, like, I didn't want to just stream it on a website. And so I think I like having it, because obviously I'm going to buy vinyl. I'm going to buy tapes when I can. And, you know, shipping's an issue here, but it kind of annoys me whenever, like, it's a physical only release and I can't hear it just because I can't, you know, justify the shipping price.
Yeah, there's a couple of, I think when I started out, I didn't want to like mess with digital, only because of like my preconceived like accounting headache that I thought it would be, but it's actually really easy.
Yeah.
And so that little bit of streaming, and because all my deals, I mean, I'm fine saying this, all my deals are split 50-50. I mean, that's just,
oh, cool.
I mean, that's how it is. It's really clean. It's more community driven than anything. And probably more than a disclosure, like, I'm not, like, I have a full-time job. I mean, aside from the label.
Yeah.
So, like,
who doesn't?
I'm not funding myself from the label. So it's nothing like malicious.
Yeah,
literally every dollar that's made back on the label is going back into art. So, you know, I've had situations where bands are like, hey, whatever we see back from this, just put back in to label.
Wow.
Like, I've had artists straight up say that they're like, I don't need the few $100 that we're seeing from this, just put out something else.
Oh, wow.
I've had people say that. So
that is incredible.
You know, and there's others that are looking for that money back, obviously. But I mean, there's the dichotomy. You know,
bands, if you're listening, that's a really great thing to do.
Yeah,
every band should do that.
Me the little money that we make back, just give it to me.
You know, that makes a difference, though. That makes a huge difference, because it's not going to pay for like a new condo or anything.
Well, no, I thought that was a testament, and I'm very transparent with everyone that we work with, like how the money is going, and at any time they can see what's happening.
That's
because
great.
That's like the horror stories that I see. It's like you see, you know, the big horror stories with the big labels, like they're withholding music, or they're taking money. It's like, holy shit, I don't want to be this Scrooge, this horrible bad label exec kind of like guy. Like, I'm not like that. So like, how do I do that? Be as transparent as possible, and don't be that guy.
Well, and the reason why that's
me getting off in a tirade and probably swearing. I mean,
the reason why
don't be that guy.
Totally. The reason why that's important is because goes back to what you were talking about with the music fans not having an understanding with how expensive it is to do physical media and the cost of mastering and whatnot. What I've realized is that a lot of artists are in the same position. They don't like, a lot of artists in the music industry have no idea what it costs to do vinyl.
Oh no, yeah, no, that's true. That's true too. And like, I completely understand, and that's a good point, because I wanted to bring this up, is that everybody wants their music on vinyl, and trust me, everything that I've put out, I want on vinyl. So
agreed.
This is not like, I mean, that's nothing. It has nothing to do with the quality of, if I choose to work with you, that's the deal. Not what physical media we end up putting it out on. I want to work with you, and I believe in the music. Whatever tangible object that's created, really, it reverts back to just the music. I want to work with you because of your art. So, having said that, I mean, that's why I want it available digitally too, is that I don't withhold certain mediums or things like that. And the difference between tape and vinyl to my artists is really, there's no difference in how I'm pushing that record, or how much I like that record, or what they mean to me at the label. And hopefully to those, you know, that they're seeing from the outside, a listener shouldn't say, oh, well, a band's better because the label wanted to do vinyl and they wanted to do tape with this. Every situation is going to be different, and that has nothing to do with it, really.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. Dude, there's been so much awesome stuff that we've talked about here. I love it. I think you have some great insights, and you have a really good position in all of this. It's easy to be jaded, but it's
We
difficult.
try not to be. I mean, I like to be too. I liked my fair share of shit talking. I have plenty to say. I mean, obviously, I'm not short on words. I have my opinions about literally everything.
But it's hard to be generous, and it's hard to be compassionate and you are. I think it's cool, man.
I mean, when you hear those horror stories, some people are like, hey, how can I take advantage of that? I just want to be like, how can I make this like the best situation possible for anyone that ends up like working with me?
That's amazing. I love your label. I think you do a great job running it. I love the new logo, the new look of things. I love the records. I've gone through a lot since we've been talking, especially in the past like 3 months. I've been trying to dig into them, and I want to dig into them more. Are you happy? Like, what's your dream for the label?
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know. I probably had like, I think now it's like a much more content feeling than maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, where I felt like I had to like do more. It's kind of like that rush you get of maybe like a big release. You want to keep going and you want to turn into something. And I mean, it's better to just stay humble and let things happen and organically grow. And I've always kind of like had that in my mind. It's like, don't rush things too much, just organically grow. Get a couple more fans with each release kind of thing. Like, just kind of slowly building off that. And I'm content of where I'm at. We have some amazing that we're going to be working with. I just hope it can, as I get bigger and more people take notice, that's just more people listening to music, and at the end of the day, that's all I ever wanted anyway. So more ears the better. Hopefully people like what we're doing. It's fun to hear the encouragement and just let us know who you're liking, kind of thing. And it's good to hear that. But yeah, I'm content where we are. I'm happy with the label, and kind of surprised we got this far. I mean, we're at like
that's
62
huge.
Releases, which is crazy. So
6 years. Yeah, I mean, that's great, man. It's I definitely and just when I first kind of came up with this idea, wanting to talk to other labels, I had been following you on Twitter for the past year or two. And, you were in the top 5 in my mind of like, I want to talk to this guy. And I loved just how the way you represent your label especially on Twitter, your personality.
Cool. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully I'm not embarrassing too many of the artists. They're like, oh no, label dad's at it again. He's going off on some tangent.
Well, I can't speak for them, but I appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks. I appreciate that too. Thank you.
For more information on Matt's label, go to forgedartifacts.com. That's spelled FORGEDARTIFACTS.com. You're just going to Google that, but whatever. Check out their label, an incredible label, and they have a lot of cassettes on Bandcamp. Actually, they have a lot of cassettes that are sold out, so good luck. But anyway, make sure you support one of their artists and check them out on streaming as well. Thank you so much for listening. Please support the podcast by visiting ebook.otherrecordlabels.com. If you're an independent artist or an independent label and want to get some information about how to get featured on curated Spotify playlists, this is a great book, and I'm saying this honestly. I've read it, I love it, and it gave me some really good insights. Check out ebook.otherrecordlabels.com for this book by Work Hard, Playlist Hard. Use the coupon code OTHER for a 10% discount. Thank you for listening. We've got so many great labels that I've been interviews that I've been working on. I'm excited for you to hear it. Please subscribe.